So, sorry, I'm going to be looking up a lot more because there's more of them in front of me, so I have to look up. Doesn't mean they're more important. It just means I have to look up more. Welcome back to school. I'm not going to give you the spiel. Maybe you guys have already heard it like 5 other times from your other teachers. So welcome back. One more step closer to normalcy, hopefully, right? Still got to wear these weird things, but it's all for safety. So it's all good. As I was reviewing questions, if you guys remember the anonymous questions that I give available for you guys on a Google Doc, remember, where it's completely anonymous. You can ask any question you guys want about the reproductive system. Although I have had a lot more questions, I still want more. So if anything comes to your head and you're just curious and you want to know, please ask a question. It's all right on Schoology on the bottom. It says anonymous questions. And remember, I won't know who asked the question, okay? A few questions came up though, referring kind of similar to gender stuff. So I figured, let me pause with what we were gonna do and talk about that. So what we are going to do is I created a little PowerPoint to kind of show you guys here. Well, that's not what I want. And again, please just bear with me because this is annoying to have to figure out. So let me share. So I shared that on there, and then I share this with you. All right, and then it should do both. Good. So for the first part of today, about 10 minutes or so, okay, we're going to talk about gender and sex and the difference and all of the stuff in between, okay? Knowledge is power, right? Knowledge is power. So most of us have been raised with a pretty simplistic idea about sex and gender, namely that there are two sexes, male and female, and they align with two genders, right? Man and woman, boy and girl, blue and pink, right? So sex. Society typically tells us there are two sexes, male and female. Some people believe that the genitals that somebody has determines the sex that they are, right? Males have penises and females have vaginas, and that is it, period, done. And we're typically also taught people with XX chromosomes are female, people with XY chromosomes are male. We're going to talk about a little bit more about that later on today, actually. However, this notion kind of excludes transgender, non-binary, and people with DSD, difference of sexual development, or intersex, who may have different chromosomal configurations or other differences in sexual development. And again, I see how that says this excludes transgender. That's not a word. It's supposed to say transgender. And last week I did the same thing and I kept saying it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to remember to change it. And I just did not. So my bad. Maybe I'll remember by next period. We also tend to associate, and we talked about estrogen and testosterone, right? We also we tend to associate a predominance of estrogen, high estrogen, with females and a predominance of testosterone with males. And it's important to know, like we learned before, that every single person has both hormones, along with many other hormones too. Secondary sex characteristics, if you guys remember what they are easily identifiable. So they're often used to make really quick assessments and quick judgments on other people and their sex. For example, facial hair, breast tissue, vocal range, right? High, low. But secondary sex characteristics really vary, okay? And regardless of whether someone identifies with the sex that they were assigned to at birth or not. So for example, facial hair, there are some people who were assigned female at birth who have facial hair. And there are some people who are assigned male at birth who have very difficult time growing facial hair throughout their entire life or have none. Just an example. On the gender. So society has also traditionally taught us that there are two genders, man and woman, boy and girl. And we're told that those who are assigned male at birth are men, and those who are assigned female at birth are women. Many times, you know, those who are assigned male at birth have a penis, those who are assigned female at birth have a vagina. But it's important to know that gender isn't an either or scenario, okay? It is a spectrum. Although a majority of people in our society do identify as men and women, there's a wide range of possibilities between and beyond the two. So we're going to kind of go into that a little bit. Non-binary. This term is an umbrella term for people whose gender identities don't really align with the man-woman binary, man-woman. Bigender, meaning that people identify as both men and women at varying points, or agender, which means they don't identify with any. And then transgender, I spelled it right there. There you go. Term used to describe people whose gender identity differs from the sex that they were assigned to at birth. We're going to talk a little bit more about gender identity in a second. Now, if you think about other cultures, not just in America, not just in Western cultures, there are many non-Western cultures that have a long history of welcoming third gender, non-genders, and transgender people in society. Just two examples are the Two-Spirit folks from indigenous American cultures and the Hijra in South Asian cultures. And there are others, many different countries. So gender identity, what does that mean? It is an internal sense of self and perception of your own gender. So it's like what you feel inside, what you feel. Nobody can really tell you that. It's just what you feel. And for some people and for many people, their gender identity, what they feel, is the same as the sex that they were assigned when they were born, right? So if your gender identity matches the sex that you were assigned when you were born, that's called cisgender. So if you ever hear about a cisgender man or a cisgender woman, that's what that means. For some, their gender identity is different than the sex that they were assigned at birth, and that is called transgender. Once again, I spelled that wrong. Called, that's supposed to say called. Good thing I'm not an English teacher, right? So back to that term non-binary, right? What does that mean? And is it different than transgender? So in recent years, the word non-binary has seen a surge in popularity, whether that be in TV shows, movies, social media. As more people use that term non-binary to describe themselves, it has become its own umbrella term, like I kind of explained earlier. People who use the word non-binary to describe their gender identity typically also calls themselves transgender. Non-binary, because of all of this, now means different things to different people. And so what am I getting at, right? Last slide, we're almost done. So person's internal personal sense of being a man or a woman, like we talked about, gender identity. And again, for transgender, the sex that they were assigned at birth and their own internal don't match, all right? And the last part is what I really wanted to kind of kick at down here. Trying to change a person's gender identity is no more successful than trying to change somebody's sexual orientation, which we're going to talk about. It just doesn't work. So one example is most transgender people seek to bring their bodies to align with the way that they're feeling. So if they're trying to bring their physical bodies to align with the way that they're feeling, that's called a transition. Some people do that. Some people don't do that. Like I said, everyone's different. So what's sexual orientation versus sexual identity? Simply put, sexual orientation is about who you are attracted to, somebody else, who you are attracted to, and who do you fall in love with. Gender identity is about who you are internally and what you feel, okay? So that's my kicker, what I'm trying to get at, okay? Everyone is different, and that's okay. Everyone's different. And as you guys know, many times during the last few marking periods, I've sat up here, I've talked about my children, I've talked about my wife. I have 2 little girls and I have a wife. Throughout my entire life, probably mid-high school-ish, I've always identified as a lesbian, as gay. I was assigned female at birth. However, years and years of kind of figuring out my own self. And just so you guys know, I'm 33. So, right, I'm an adult. I have a job. It seems like, I'm structured. I have everything going on, right? But I'm still learning about myself and coming to terms with things about my life. So, in sitting here as an educator, as your teacher, as maybe some of you might look up to me, I've been here for 10 years. I've had kids who are now, some students are now like reaching out to me. They're like 26 years old, 27. It's pretty cool. It's an awesome thing to like listen to students and hear things from after you graduate, you come back, right? And then I have like their little brother or sister. It's really cool. But as an educator and as somebody that, is an authoritative figure, is your teacher, I think it's important for you guys to also know that as you get older, it doesn't matter what age you are, because it's already hard for you guys as young kids. Your hormones are going nuts, right? You're learning about your bodies, you're learning about what you like, what you don't like, just in general, everything, not even having to do with gender. And so I think it's important for me to be able to fully come out and be able to let you guys know that I am transgender. And I will be transitioning. And as somebody who has been hiding that myself for years because I was scared, I'm here to let you guys know that it's okay to talk about your feelings. Doesn't have to do anything with gender. In my class on Friday, one of my students asked me very politely, very nicely, what pronouns I would like to be called. And for those of you who don't know what pronouns are, it's kind of like he, him, she, her. There's also they, them, some people. And it can be weird. So let's just be honest here. Like, it can be weird, especially if any of you guys have known me for a longer period of time. Abby, right? Yes. And it could be weird, and I'm using these terms uncomfortable and awkward. I'm using these terms for a reason. Why? Because a lot of times when things are uncomfortable or weird, it's because we just don't know, right? It's unfamiliar. It's the unknown. And it just takes time sometimes. And that's okay. But how do you fix that? You learn. You educate yourself. And it takes time. You ask questions. I'm open to questions. You guys can feel free to message me, email me, whatever, or not. Who cares, right? I'm an open book. But I just wanted to have that conversation with all of you and to also let you guys know that it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter where you come from. You know, we're all dealing with stuff and it's okay. So when it comes to my pronouns, you know, I would like you guys to not call me Miss or Mrs. Diamond is fine. Just call me Diamond, right? My preferred pronouns are he, him, and Mr. And I will leave that up to all of you guys for however you feel comfortable and however you feel fit. Listen, it's been a crazy year anyway, right? So why not throw this in the fire here? Okay. Now it's really funny because last week on Friday, my other classes, of course I have an A schedule and a B schedule. I had to do this freaking double the amount of time, right? Yay me. But I didn't really know how to transition into like the next thing we were doing today. So that's a little awkward. So today we are going to be starting the fertilization. We're going to be talking about fertilization. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do, and I'm going to give you guys a moment to take out your computers. You're going to go onto Schoology, and I am going on right now to be able to publish this. The cool thing about the assignment today is that it is an assignment you're going to complete in class while I'm talking. So it's kind of like a storyline kind of thing. And I'm going to be like reading it and talking to you guys, and you're going to fill in the blanks as I'm talking. Okay. So if you miss something at the end of it, just let me know. Or if I'm going too fast and, you know, whatever, just let me know. The assignment is being published right now. It's called 322 Assignment Fertilization. So I'm just going to give the folks that are here in front of me a moment to open up their computers and log in here. Once you open the assignment, you'll see how it tells you to follow along with the teacher to fill in the blanks. Everyone in front of me ready? You guys good? Nick, you good? All right, everyone at home good? Okay, so here we go. So I thought, okay, I could give you guys a reading assignment, letting you do boring, right? But then I thought one of the ways that our brain works really well in memorizing or remembering things is like a story. And for the next two topics in the reproductive system, today and next class, we are going to kind of do it in a story way. I think it works better, and I think it's a way of people remembering easier. So let's start. Fertilization process. Female. One egg or ovum is released from its follicle in the ovary about every 28 days. 28 days. And just in case, if there are some of you that might not know how to spell things, I'll write some stuff here so that way it'll be easier, okay? The egg is immediately drawn into the fallopian tube. And I'm not going to write every single word because some of these are, you should know, right? The egg has a window of about 24 hours to become fertilized. 24 hours. If fertilized, we'll get to it in a few. If unfertilized, the egg is washed out of the body during, does anyone know? I talked about it last class. If the egg is not fertilized, it gets washed out of the body during what?
It's basically your period, basically, isn't it?
Well, if I knew how to spell it, menstruation is the correct word. Menstruation. Good. Along with the buildup of blood and nutrients in the uterus. And yes, we will have a class designated to the menstrual cycle. You're welcome, gentlemen. I told you this is my time to make you feel uncomfortable. Kidding. Male. While still in the male, sperm are mixed with secreted fluid to become semen. Through ejaculation, and upwards of blank are released into the woman's vagina. How many sperm, take a guess, do you think is released?
More than 6 million?
30
Around
million.
6 million?
30 million? That's a lot.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Well, you're a real man.
Not billion, not that much. All right, 200 million. What? Sperm. 200 million sperm. One ejaculation, 200 million sperm. Not exactly though, it can vary, right? Sperm have the capacity to live for about 48 to 72 hours. Now that number, although it says 2 to 3 days, it could be up to like 7 days if those sperm can survive, right? Many are killed by the acidic environment of the vagina. Quick! What in the male reproductive system secretes a fluid that neutralizes or calms down the acidity of the female's vagina? What is it? What calms down the acidity of the female's vagina? It is a fluid that is released from where? And it is part of semen.
The prostate gland?
The prostate gland is correct. Who was that? You don't have to tell me, it's fine, but good job. I was gonna say bonus point.
It was me.
It was me. I know who that is.
Amy.
I can't see any names, but it's cool. Okay. So even with that secretion, most of the sperm are still killed. The battlefield. Remember, guys, I told you the battlefield of the vagina, it's no joke. They're still going to kill everything. All right. So only 50 sperm reach the ovum. What's an ovum? Egg. The egg. All right. So here's a funny thing. And this happens every year, except for this year because we're all robots on Zoom, right? But in the past, anytime I have kids in class and I'm talking about, oh my God, when somebody ejaculates 200 million sperm, but only 50 make it. And I always get guys going, oh man, 200 million and then 50? There's no way I could get a girl pregnant, right? But now I want you to think about it the opposite way. 50 sperm to 1 egg. 50 sperm to 1 egg. High chance or low chance? Very high chance, right? So you have to think it in terms of that too. All right, moving on. While moving through the uterus, sperm undergo capacitation, changes in the membrane that allow it to enter the ovum. So pretty much the egg has a keyhole and there's a special key that fits in that. So when the sperm get really close to the egg, they will undergo this change and they'll form into the correct shape of the key that fits that egg. That makes sense? That's what capacitation means. When sperm reach the ovum, They secrete an enzyme that softens the covering, which only allows one sperm to enter. Some sperm can reach the ovum within 5 minutes of ejaculation. So that means if you are having unprotected sex and the person ejaculates inside of the female, within 5 minutes afterwards, that female can be pregnant. That's how quick it can happen. All right. But the average time after that occurs is 4 to 6 hours. So the average time that it takes a sperm to get all the way up to find its way to the egg is about 4 to 6 hours. But it can also be 3 days, a day, 12 hours, who knows? We'll talk about that a little bit later. So conception, and that is the first word. Conception or fertilization is the moment that the sperm enters the ovum's covering and reaches its nucleus, marking the beginning of pregnancy. So we talked about what fertilization is. When the sperm meets the egg, another word for fertilization is conception. You have to know that. Oh, excuse me. Whether the sperm is carrying the X or Y chromosome paired with the X chromosome of the ovum determine if a male or female is conceived. And if you guys remember, right, we as humans get half from our mom and half from our dad. Okay? So females carry XX, not all the time, but for the most part, and for the sake of this class and talking about reproduction. Okay? So XX. So you're either going to get an X from mom or you're going to get an X from mom, right? Males carry XY. So you're either going to get an X from dad or you're going to get a Y from dad, right? So you can either get XX or XY, all right? Fertilization usually happens in the 1/3 upper area of the 1/3 of the, where does fertilization occur? We talked about this last class.
Fallopian tube.
Not the uterus, the fallopian tubes. Good. And then last class, I talked to you guys about how, well, not last class because I wasn't here. So the class before that, I guess. How there's different terms for fertilized eggs at different stages of pregnancy. Okay, so we're going to get into that right now. After 3 days of cell division, the zygote, now called blastocyst, moves down the fallopian tube into the uterus, and it attaches itself to the, the side. What's that called? The side of the lining of the uterus. There's another term for uterine lining. What's the other term for uterine lining? Giving you guys a hint here. Endometrium. Good, I only gave you half the word. Well done. Where it sinks down into the lining and it becomes the womb. So the process is called implantation. We'll talk about that later. Next class. Good question. She asked, what is the placenta then? We will talk about that later. So what is implantation? It's when the fertilized egg attaches itself to the endometrium or the uterine lining or the side of the uterus. It implants, right? It implants itself. This is where the development continues all up until delivery. All right. And like I said, there's weird names for this fertilized egg at different stages of pregnancy. So from fertilization up to like 3 to 5 days, it's called a blastocyst. It's weird, right? But from fertilization all the way up to around 2 weeks, which is that first one down at the bottom, it's called a zygote. When a fertilized egg reaches about 3 weeks to 8 weeks, it's called an embryo. And then from 9 weeks until the end of pregnancy, until it comes out and it's your little baby, hopefully not your little baby, but it's called what? Yes, fetus. All right, what are we missing? Did anyone miss anything that needs me to repeat? Anyone here? Anyone on Zoom? What's up?
Can you share the screen again for the last answer? I missed it.
Oh yeah, it's fetus. I can share it again. I'm sorry,
Thank
what
you.
are you asking? Huh? Oh, I'm not looking at. You missed the. Oh, okay, hold on. After 3 days of cell division, the zygote, now called blastocyst. And I have a question here. I missed the female part in the beginning. You mean the first question, Sydney? The first question? Or, I mean, sorry, the first blank?
The first 3 bullet points.
Oh, okay. So 28 days. The egg is immediately drawn into the fallopian tube. The egg has a window of about 24 hours to become fertilized. And if it's not fertilized, the egg is washed out of the body during menstruation. Those of you who have your assignment completed and you're not missing anything, you can just submit that right now. And that is your credit for the day. And you are able to leave if you have no other questions.